Honestly, I like this one more than I mean, we do these recaps because fucking obviously, but I like doing this one even more than the Champions League one because this one you guys don't quite know as much about, although we have cultivated a community of ball knowers here, and I respect you for that. But I feel like there's also a lot more going on because on these magical Thursdays, particularly the last couple, right? It is all the Europa League playoff matches. It's all the Conference League playoff matches. It is so much chaos. It is so much drama. And we'll start with the one that more ball knowers are familiar with, which would be the Europa League, even though the fact that they're all playing at the same time kind of makes it feel like it's grouped together. And this was, unlike Champions League on Wednesday, chaos, absolute chaos from start to finish. Paulo Dybala, by the way, he woke up. 2 goals for Roma to take a 2-1 lead in this match. It was one of those matches where whoever wins it's going to win the tie. Porto taking that early lead. Porto gets a red card. It's the Canadian Stephen Eustachio to start out the second half, and then it's put away late. Until it, wasn't, because they technically scored in the 96th minute on an own goal. And I remember watching that kind of pop up live, and I'm like, there's no way, right? And there was no way that Porto was able to score 2 goals in the last couple of seconds down a man to overturn Roma. So if you're looking for something positive from the Italian leagues, it would be Roma being able to get this result. But as I described it at the time, this just feels like a classic Europa League knockout match. This is where these clubs, at least, in the past 5 or 10 years, this is where they are going to be the vast majority of the time, where they're hoping to be, and they do have the opportunity to win the Europa League if everything goes right for them. Porto now no longer has that opportunity, and there is only one Portuguese team that is still alive and kicking, and that would be Benfica, obviously, in the Champions League. But that leads us to maybe the entire match of the day. This was unbelievable. I can't show you the goals because DMCA, I mean, I'm proud, the people that own the TV rights will probably kick in my window and just make me disappear to some sort of FBI black box, right? But FC Twente comes into this game with a 1-goal lead. Okay, but they have to go into the Arctic Circle where Bodo Glimt plays in Norway, right? Everybody knows at this point, anybody that's paying attention knows that Bodo Glimt, because they've had European success the last couple of years, they're north of the Arctic Circle. They play outside. This shit isn't going to be easy. Right? They are a very, very tough out. Experienced, not afraid of the moment, which I guess is just 2 ways of saying the exact same thing. And they're talented. They play well. And FC Twente is obviously coming out of a Dutch league that's got hands, right? All these other Dutch teams are doing really well. And they take the lead. It's 3-1 on aggregate to Twente at halftime. But Bodo Glimt gets a penalty in the 56th minute. So they're feeling better about their chances. But then nothing happens. And nothing happens, right? It's 1-1 on the day. That means FC Twente's got a 3-2 lead on aggregate. And then all of a sudden, shit hits the fan. 92nd minute, it's like a wild own goal where Bodo Glimt is losing going into stoppage time. They're going to go out of the entire tournament. And they just scramble this goal in, and it deflects. It goes in. Oh, hallelujah. Bodo Glimt is going to stay alive. You've got the entire... the audience watching on TV, you got the people that are there in person, the people on the field, they're all just starting to process the fact that extra time is now all of a sudden on the horizon, that 30 more minutes of freezing to death is on the horizon. And then all of a sudden, they score again. I mean, the Twente team looked despondent, right? Like his 94th minute, and Bodo Glimt in a 2-minute stretch goes from being eliminated to advancing. No extra time, no nonsense, just on the field in stoppage time. So, I mean, that sort of thing happens in penalties, but not on the field in stoppage time to go from I'm out to I'm in to the next round. But Twente, to their incredible credit, manages to somehow get itself together after giving up 2 goals in 3 minutes in heartbreaking fashion to score. They score in the 96th minute, and it is the ugliest goal you've ever seen. It was a rugby scrum in front of the mouth of the goal. It ends up in the back of the net, silence in the stadium, and all of a sudden, both teams have experienced extreme heartbreak in the last 180 seconds. Both teams thought they were advancing at some point in the in stoppage time. That's insane. Twente manages to make it there, but Bodo Glimt was the better team on the day. They just were, and eventually they find their way through in the 111th minute to knock out Twente. This is the team that drew Manchester United, which becomes less and less impressive by the day, right? But a team that is coming out of a league that is clearly better than a lot of people thought that it was, and yet Bodo Glimt was able to handle it. And they're headed to the round of 16 of the Europa League as a result in one of the wildest matches. And while this wasn't a wild match, this was a wild result. FCSB, who pulled off the stunning 2-1 win against PAOK Thessaloniki in the first round, or the first leg, go into the second leg, and this Romanian team is just lighting the world on fire. And really what we are seeing with the Conference League, and now it's kind of bleeding into the Europa League, is these teams that didn't normally get these sorts of opportunities are getting the opportunity to really show if they've got the stuff. And FCSB has the stuff. I mean, like PAOK Thessaloniki is a European brand. They have a couple of guys that would be considered wonder kids on Football Manager. They are a bigger club, right? At least right now, and the way things have gone. I mean, the Romanian league just hasn't really sent anybody deep in Europe in a long time. But FCSB 4-1 on aggregate is no joke. Okay, when you look at the numbers from the matches, they're no joke either. It's not like FCSB is just locking it down and hitting the counters really effectively. I mean, this is a fairly even game that obviously edges out to FCSB because they held a clean sheet and scored 2 freaking goals. 4-1 on aggregate over one of the big clubs from Greece. That is a result. Okay, and that sends them to the round of 16 of the Europa League. So congratulations to them. Galatasaray and AZ Alkmaar. I have no idea what happened here. Okay, the first leg was a blowout. Galatasaray is way too talented to be losing 4-1 to AZ. But then all of a sudden, AZ rolls up and scores 2 goals to open this match as well. It's 6-1 before Galatasaray scores 2 consolation goals. And just to give you an idea of the talent here, right? Victor Osimhen scores the first. The second one comes from Roland Salai, who plays the Hungarian national team. I recognize that guy from the freaking Euros, okay? And it just doesn't matter. Galatasaray can have all the freaking dudes they want, apparently, and it's just not going to matter against these Dutch teams. AZ mowed them down 6-3 on aggregate, and they're headed to the round of 16 of the Europa League. And Galatasaray, who I would have said is a dark horse to win the entire Europa League, has now been knocked out by a team that I guess I now have to admit is a dark horse to win the Europa League. That brings us to Ajax. Okay, this Ajax match. Now, I don't want you to see the score. I'm going to zoom really far in. There's no way for me to get rid of the score on top. So I'm going to ask our editor to do a little actual editing and blur that one. Just because I don't want to spoil this one for you on the drop, because it is so amazing what happened in case you did not see it. Ajax against Royal Union Saint-Gilloise. Now, if you're Ajax, you're coming into this second leg feeling very good. You have a 2-0 lead, right? A multi-goal lead going into the second leg. That creates confidence. That can change the way you play to make sure that you're a little more reserved. And then all of a sudden, they concede a goal in the 16th minute, right? That obviously spices things up. Then Davy Klaassen gets sent off with a red card in the 25th minute. And 3 minutes later, RUSG Royal Union Saint-Gilloise scores again. Probably the worst 28 minutes you could possibly have. Outside of going behind, right? Just disaster. Complete and utter disaster at home. They're at home for this game. They won 2-0 on the road. And you give up 2 goals and a red card in the first 28 minutes. It felt like a matter of time before Royal Union Saint-Gilloise was actually going to go on and win this tie, and it was going to be more heartache for an Ajax team that's just had a rough couple of years. But then all of a sudden they grew a spine. They got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 yellow cards. Granted, 2 of those were for players that weren't even on the field, but that shows the intensity that developed in this match. And Royal Union Saint-Gilloise was not able to score for the rest of the match. And in extra time, they get a penalty that Kenneth Taylor puts away. And in Ajax, don't give up a goal for the rest of extra time either. Nearly 100 minutes with stoppage time probably over. 100 minutes since that equalizing goal on aggregate from Royal Union Saint-Gilloise. Down a man the entire time. Ajax manages to keep them out of the back of the net. This is a heartbreaking loss for Royal Union Saint-Gilloise because it was there. They had a famous night on a platter, and they couldn't finish their dinner. And Ajax, 30 minutes into this match must have felt like it was over against them. And they just hung on and hung on and hung on and hung on and found their goal in extra time and hung on some more. They did everything right for the last 100 minutes of this match, and they're able to advance to the round of 16 in the Europa League as a result of it. Pretty remarkable result overall. One of the easier ones was Fenerbahce. They already had a multi-goal lead. They were up 3-0 from the first leg against Anderlecht, which was a big surprise. Anderlecht did take a 2-1 lead in the second half, but Fenerbahce wiped it away a few minutes later. It ended on a 2-2, which is 5-2 on aggregate. Galatasaray goes out. Fenerbahce advances, which with the huge rivalries in Turkey is definitely going to be something they're bragging about. And Jose Mourinho's ability in these lower European competitions, the Europa League, the Conference League, is still undefeated. Do not count out Fenerbahce, because Anderlecht was very good looking in the previous round. Heartbreak for the Hungarian champs. Ferencváros completely undone here. They won 1-0 at home. They're feeling good, but Victoria Pilsen is a team that for years now has made it into the European knockouts somewhere. They got into the European round of 16, I think it was, in the Conference League last year after surviving against Servette. Their experience, they've been here before, and one thing I've learned from watching them, right, and watching like just the scores they're able to put up, they don't give up goals. They just don't. They shut everybody down. Everybody that plays Victoria Pilsen gets shut down and struggles. And this time they found, I mean, their 3 goals came in the first 38 minutes of the match. They just wiped Ferencváros away, and they're into the round of 16. Ferencváros is out. They had a very exciting tournament, definitely raised their profile, but Victoria Pilsen, the best Czech team right now, they're cooking. They did exactly what they normally do in this situation. And Real Sociedad at home with a 1-goal advantage against Midtjylland. It was always going to be the favorite. They ended up winning it 5-2 to take it 7-3 on aggregate to send the Spanish club through to the round of 16. They are definitely looking like not one of the more exciting potential winners, but they are definitely looking like a team that could win this competition. Midtjylland felt a little outgunned in this entire showdown. But that brings us to the freaking Conference League, which is what, I mean, the Conference League speaks to the people. It is of the people. It is for the people. This is where the real opportunities are for heroes to be made. The Real Betis of Spain, if you are from a Big 5 league in the Conference League, you are one of the favorites to win it. They won the first leg 3-0, so this 1-0 defeat, Anthony wasn't able to work his magic in this one to Ghent. Doesn't matter. They are through to the next round. That was one of the non-exciting matches. This, I told you, was like the tie of the round. Copenhagen made the Champions League last 16 last time. Heidenheim's from the Bundesliga. They're expecting to be able to do a lot of damage in this competition. But they are, of course, they are also a club that 14 years ago was in the 5th division of Germany. So it's like seeing Luton Town play in Europe, basically. So you don't really know exactly what you're going to get. And the first leg was 2-1 to Heidenheim, but Copenhagen tied this up in the first half. On aggregate in Germany, heartbreak for Heidenheim because Schiaka scores, and now you're sweating it. In the 53rd minute, Copenhagen scores again. Okay, so they take the lead on aggregate away. They're up 3-2 on aggregate over Heidenheim. Heidenheim is now dealing with 20 minutes of being out before they get a goal that ends up forcing extra time in the 73rd minute. Okay, and in extra time, that is where Copenhagen scored to win. 114th minute. And unfortunately for Heidenheim, they've had a tough year in the Bundesliga. They're battling against relegation. It's they most likely to end up in the relegation playoff, where they play like a playoff team from the Bundesliga that's fight the Bundesliga to see if they can stay up. And I would make them favorites for that because they've shown so much resilience and being able to get to the Bundesliga so quickly and all of that, and being able to sneak into the Conference League last year with a miraculous league performance. But the dream, at least the European dream, is dead for Heidenheim. The team that had the more European experience was able to go into this second leg with much more of a killer mindset, and the best team out of Denmark is rolling into the round of 16. And don't get this twisted for a second, just because they had played a close match against Heidenheim. Copenhagen could win the entire thing. This is a competition that Copenhagen is good enough to win. They have the talent, they have the experience, and now they have managed to get through one of the biggest obstacles that you could have, which is the Bundesliga representative in the freaking tournament. And in the next match embodies everything that's great about the Conference League. You have the Slovenian champions Olimpia Ljubljana against Borac Banja Luka, who is second in the freaking Bosnia and Herzegovina league right now. But it did not matter. I did not get to watch much of this match, but I would imagine all that Borac Banja Luka did was play diabolical terrorist football here. Like, just completely ruinous against the spirit of the game. And I fucking love it. I love it. Injected into my veins. They're not even first in the Bosnia and Herzegovina League right now, and they're trying to get to a European round of 16. They got an easier draw, and they flubbed a 1-0 win in the first leg at home against Ljubljana. Now they're on the road, and they're able to hold on for 0-0. Olimpia Ljubljana did not score one goal in the entire 180 plus. They didn't score one goal. Borac Banja Luka scored one. This reminded me of Tunisia against Mali in World Cup qualifying. That's what it felt like. Tunisia scored one goal and then just outmanned them the rest of the game, like the entire rest of the tie. Then the one goal Tunisia scored in that World Cup qualifying tie before the 2022 World Cup was an own goal that was horrific from Mali. It was a back pass gone wrong. But that doesn't matter. The point, sometimes you got to lean into the point of the sport, which is how many times did I put the ball in the back of the net compared to how many times you put the ball in the back of the net. And that was the only option for Borac Banja Luka. Is it fun to play against? No. Did it work? Yeah. There is now a team from Bosnia and Herzegovina into the last 16 of the Conference League. Do they have any chance to win the whole thing? Probably not. But who cares? Then there was the All-Cyprus showdown, somehow. Ammonia against Paphos. Paphos managed to pull this one out. It was tied after the first leg. Paphos was able to win their home leg and beat their domestic foe. Okay, there were three teams, actually, from Cyprus in this Conference League round. But the problem is, the other one lost. Apoel, the team that most people would recognize as the team in Cyprus, they lost to Celje. Now, Celje is from Slovenia. And if you're thinking, wow, I thought Olimpia Ljubljana was the best team in Slovenia. They are. This is the league table in Slovenia, but Ljubljana is out, and Celje, who is in fifth. Fifth! They're in fifth. They're not even, they're friggin' 10 points with a match in hand, out of a European position in the domestic league, but who cares? Because for some reason, on one sunshiny day in Cyprus, they won 2-0. And one of the, like in Nicosia, in Cyprus, they win 2-0 on the road. Could not tell you how this happened. The Cypriot League and Apoel in particular is definitely better than that. They weren't on this day. Just a huge surprise that I don't think a lot of people would have picked at all, but that's just the magic of the Conference League is now we have a team who's not first in Bosnia and Herzegovina that's done the things it needed to do to get to the round of 16. And we've got the fifth place team from Slovenia that nobody's ever heard of. I hadn't heard of. That's done the things it needed to do to get to the round of 16. It's just one match on a field in Cyprus, and they were the team that was better. And then, of course, there was Poland. Jagiellonia, who were brilliant in the league stage, and I warned you we're going to be pretty good. They just blew the doors off TSC from Serbia, 3-1 in both legs. So watch out for Jagiellonia as potentially one of those surprise packages that the tournaments like the Conference League can help expose, a team that just seems to really have its shit together and is putting together impressive result after impressive result. But it's not like a team you have coming out of the Serbian league is going to be a complete pushover, at least not to the tune of 6-2 in favor of the team from the Polish league. And then the final two ties were the massive upset bids. Vikingur Reykjavik, who couldn't even play at home and had to play their home match in Finland, was coming in with a 2-1 advantage over Greek giants Panathinaikos. And they held on, and they held on, and they held on. And then in the 70th minute, Panathinaikos was able to equalize it. And then they held on, and they held on, and not all underdogs have their day. All right. I mean, they did. They won a European knockout match in that first leg against Panathinaikos, but in the 95th minute, Panathinaikos scored the winner and knocked out Iceland's representative Vikingur Reykjavik to make it to the round of 16. But what an effort from the boys from Iceland, who play a summer schedule, by the way. So they're basically in preseason right now, having to deal with this sort of shit. That is a very, very, very impressive run. And then, of course, the other upset bid was Shamrock Rovers. They had a 1-0 win after an early red card and a kind of shithouse goal at Molde in Norway. They're at home in Ireland, playing a big game, and then a goal in the 10th minute that was kind of a huge goalkeeping mistake gets Molde back into it. It goes all the way to penalties after a red card again for Molde that allowed the entire extra time to be played with one more Shamrock player. Didn't matter. Every penalty in this penalty shootout was really good except for one, and that one was on Shamrock's side. It was just a bad penalty. I don't blame the guy. We've all hit one, but it was a bad penalty. Did not do with it what he wanted to do with it. Molde took some brilliant penalties in a really on top of you type atmosphere in Ireland, right? I mean, it's a European knockout match against an Irish league team. It was frothing at the mouth type fandom. It was a really intense environment. They took some brilliant penalties. And that means we got a couple of Norwegian teams headed to the round of 16 of the Europa League and the Conference League, with Molde being able to survive. So the two other big upsets, I mean, there were two big upsets. Borac Banja Luka and Celje both making it to the next round. But the other two, Shamrock Rovers and Viking Reykjavik, from the particularly small leagues that they were coming from, were not able to make it to the round of 16. We got our more boring options there. But now the Europa League and the Conference League bring in the 8 teams that got a bye, including teams like Chelsea, right, in the Conference League, that will be drawn up against the 8 teams that managed to survive. Long live Borac Banja Luka and Celje. We'll see how long those magic runs can go.